Today's webinar is titled How to Write a Traditional Mystery. Our presenter today is alumna Maggie King. Maggie is the author of the Hazel Rose Book Group mysteries, including Murder at the Book Group and Murder at the Moonshine Inn. Her short stories, A Not So Genteel Murder and Reunion in Shockoe, I should have asked how to say that, Slip, appeared in the Virginia is for Mysteries anthologies. Wine, Women, and Wrong is included in 50 Shades of Cabernet, a Mysterious Anthology. Maggie graduated from Elizabeth Seton College and earned a bachelor's degree in business administration right here at RIT. She belongs to James River Writers, the American Association of University Women, and is a founding member of the Sisters in Crime Central Virginia chapter. She has worked as a software developer, retail sales manager, customer service supervisor, web designer, and nonprofit administrator. Maggie has called New Jersey, Massachusetts, and California home. These days, she lives in Richmond, Virginia with her husband, and all her jobs, schools, and residences have gifted her with her story ideas for years to come. Maggie, we're thrilled to have you with us today. Let's get this webinar started.
Thank you, Cindy, and thank you to everyone for joining us today. Today, we will talk about writing the traditional mystery. We have a few goals in mind: creating characters your readers will love, developing an appealing setting, planning your story, and creating suspense. To get a better understanding of your interests, we'd like for you to answer this question. Have you written or are you thinking about writing a mystery? And we'll open for polling now, and we'll look at your answers as they come in. First, what is a mystery? In simple terms, a mystery is a novel, play, or movie dealing with a puzzling crime, especially a murder. The main character is a detective, also known as a sleuth, who solves the mystery by logical reasoning. Each suspect must have a believable motive and a reasonable opportunity for committing the crime. Facts, clues, and red herrings are presented to the reader throughout the story, but the author strives to surprise the reader with the identity of the killer and motive. There are different types of mysteries. There's the traditional mystery, also known as the cozy or the classic whodunit. The focus is on the puzzle. The main question the reader has is, who is the murderer? The works of Agatha Christie offered the best-known example of this mystery subgenre. Murder, She Wrote, starring Angela Lansbury, is a televised version of a traditional mystery. And now, right on the heels of the first question, we have a second polling question. Tell us which mysteries you watch on TV or in film. Again, we'll look at your answers as they come in. Oh, it's not. Sorry for the delay here. Okay. Here is the cover for The Murder at the Vicarage. This is the first in Agatha Christie's Miss Marple series, and this has been filmed many, many times. Okay. Another type of mystery is suspense. The main question in suspense takes the traditional mystery one step further. Who is the murderer, and will the protagonist die? There are two main types of suspense mysteries. They're psychological and romantic. In psychological suspense, the characters are unstable emotionally or mentally. Examples are the best-selling Girl on the Train, Gone Girl, and then the many works of Patricia Highsmith and Ruth Rendell. In romantic suspense, as the name suggests, the main characters are romantically involved and must face down danger and nail-biting hurdles in their pursuit of the killer. J.D. Robb, Mary Burton, Lisa Gardner, and Julie Garwood are known for their romantic suspense stories. The late Mary Stewart more or less pioneered the genre. And then there's the thriller. The thriller features a hero and villain with plenty of action and close calls. This genre may be narrowed down by a profession, such as medical thriller or political thriller. The stakes will be higher than in a traditional mystery or tale of suspense. The question the reader now has is, who is the murderer? Will the protagonist die? And will the world blow up? Read authors David Baldacci, Dan Brown, or Robin Cook, and of course James Patterson. They're all very good examples of authors of thrillers. Okay. There are different types of sleuths. There's the private investigator, also known as a PI. The heroes of these stories are professional investigators or ex-cops. They're independent, intelligent, and often get involved in physical brawls. The PI genre, it typically falls into two subgenres. There's the hard-boiled and the soft-boiled. Hard-boiled, they usually have gritty descriptions of people and places. They depict violent crimes, and they're usually set in urban environments. The soft-boiled are similar in style but lighter in tone. There's usually wry humor in the soft-boiled type. The authors of fictional PIs include Raymond Chandler, Robert Craze, and Sue Grafton. Police procedural. This is a type of crime fiction that has elements involved in a police investigation. Investigative field work and forensics are included in this. And examples are Ed McBain's 87th Precinct series, Joseph Wamba's Hollywood Station series, and Michael Conley's Harry Bosch series. And since Joseph Wamba was a cop himself for many years, his are considered to be extremely realistic. And then there's the amateur sleuth, who's just an average citizen, not professionally trained in apprehending killers. Their professions could include, being librarians, journalists, car mechanics, bed and breakfast owners, hairstylists, just about anything. Nancy J. Cullen, Mary Dayheim, and Lindy Stevens are among the many authors who write mysteries featuring amateur detectives. And this is a cover for Nancy J. Cullen, a title, her latest in her Bad Hair Day mystery series, and she has a hair salon owner as the sleuth, as the amateur sleuth. Okay, and I also write a series of traditional classic puzzle mysteries with an amateur sleuth. So for the remainder of our time together, I will talk about that subgenre, but my advice can be applied to police procedurals or PI mysteries. Some of the characteristics of a traditional mystery. It's a whodunit with an amateur sleuth. It's often referred to as a cozy or a classic puzzle mystery. There's no explicit sex or violence. The focus is on solving the puzzle, not on forensic detail. There's little or no profanity. There's a small number of suspects who usually know each other. And traditional mysteries are very much about relationships and often, of course, relationships that have gone awry. And readers and editors of the traditional mystery prefer a series as opposed to a standalone. However, many mystery writers write both. Okay, Murder at the Book Group. That was the first. That was my debut series novel. And in this, a description of it, scandals and secrets abound. It's a story of two women. Carlene Arness, she's a mystery writer who dies after drinking poison tea during a meeting of her book group in Richmond, Virginia. Hazel Rose is a romance writer who doesn't believe that Carlene committed suicide, despite the note found near her body. Hazel decides to find out who killed Carlene. Hazel is amazed when she finds out that the refined and reserved Carlene had quite a checkered past. She's equally amazed at what she learns about the other book group members. And then Murder at the Moonshine Inn, that's the second in my Hazel Rose Book Group series. In this, Hazel is asked to find out who killed a high-powered executive in the parking lot of a redneck bar. At first, Hazel balks because she's a romance writer, not a detective. But Brad Jones, the victim's husband, is the prime suspect. And he's Hazel's cousin, and Hazel believes in doing anything to help family. Never mind that Brad doesn't give her the time of day, he's still family. So Hazel recruits her book group members to help with the investigation, and she goes undercover to the bar where the victim was killed. She gets to witness firsthand how much money matters, and how some will stop at nothing to get their hands on it. Okay, let's talk about setting. Setting is an important consideration for your story, especially if you're planning a series. The setting could be the ocean, the mountains, or the desert. Your country could be the United States or another country altogether. The setting will usually be where you live or a place you know well. If your setting is not where you live, be sure to keep up with the current events and try to visit often. Many readers of traditional mysteries prefer small town settings. But if you have a small town, you need to bring in new characters with each story. Author Mary D. Holin deals with this in her Alpine series, which is set in a small town in Washington State. She built a community college and a retirement home. In the stories, faculty and students from nearby communities come into Alpine to attend the college, and nearby communities also supply residents for the retirement home. Okay. More about settings. Settings often offer distinctive elements that you can work into your plot. You can make your setting come alive and be authentic by considering aspects such as the climate, economics, religion, government, politics, medical facilities, cultural opportunities, and more. I set my series in Richmond, where I live. My Richmond setting, it's historical. It's the state capital of Virginia and was the capital of the Confederacy. In recent years, the population has become more diverse and the politics have changed. This has caused a certain amount of conflict, and conflict is good for your mystery. However, be careful about writing about politics. If you sound at all partisan, you risk alienating half your readers. I had some critical reviews for Murder at the Book Group from readers who felt I mentioned politics too much. Some thought I favored one political party over the other. That wasn't my intention, but there you have it. People are sensitive, especially in this day and age. The same holds true for religion and for social issues in general. Be careful, but, don't be too careful. Bring in the five senses. Let the reader see, smell, taste, feel, and hear the place where your characters are at any point in the story. Can your readers hear the roar of the ocean? Can they smell the cheesesteaks of your Philadelphia setting? And how does the cat's fur feel? Visit your setting, walk around, and soak in the sights, sounds, and smells. Map your setting by creating diagrams and collages of the town or neighborhood and your sleuth residents. This will help you to keep track of details. Many authors create Pinterest boards, and you don't have to worry about being artistic. I certainly am not. Creating your sleuth. Okay. But first you need to answer some questions that your readers will have. Why is your sleuth investigating? Was the victim a relative or a friend? Did the sleuth find the body? Is the sleuth or a relative or a friend of hers a suspect? Your sleuth's lifestyle and occupation may reveal a world that is unknown to the reader. The occupation may be your own or one that you research. Be sure that you're comfortable with and interested in the occupation. If librarians interest you and electrical engineers don't, make your sleuth a librarian. And for ease, I will use the female pronouns she and her for the most part, but all points I make are applicable to males. The sleuth's occupation should bring her in contact with many people. If she doesn't have an occupation, volunteering and social activities can serve the same purpose. Her job needs to be a flexible one, as she'll need time to investigate the murder.
Maggie?
Yes.
Maggie, we do have a question. Sean wants to know, would it be reasonable to create a fictional town altogether and make up whatever you want for the locations, or does that tend to make a mystery less real?
No, that's fine. Many authors do that. So, and sometimes it makes it easier because if you do have things the way that you want them. Sue Grafton, she writes, she calls the town Santa Teresa. It's actually Santa Barbara, and most people can, if they're familiar with Santa Barbara, do recognize it. But that way she can have restaurants that she can make up restaurants, and she doesn't have to worry about things changing, like the, physical aspects of the town changing. Did that answer the question?
As far as I know, it did, Maggie. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Okay, Jillian Roberts, in her Amanda Pepper series, which is set in Philadelphia, the protagonist is a teacher, and she gets out of school by mid-afternoon, which leaves her a few hours for sleuthing. And incidentally, Helen Past No Fury, this one is set in a book group. Okay, qualities of your sleuth. Your sleuth must be intelligent and observant. She'll be a seeker of justice, determined to reveal the truth. Your sleuth must be a good listener. Suspects and others will often unwittingly reveal information. Your sleuth will be inquisitive and persistent, refusing to take no for an answer. And your sleuth doesn't put herself in dangerous situations, but she often gets in them anyway because she suspects someone else or she believes the situation to be harmless. Just be careful that she isn't too stupid to live. There's an acronym for that, TSTL, too stupid to live. You've probably read stories or seen shows or watched movies where, the sleuth does get themselves into, dangerous situations, without thinking. I once read a book where the sleuth broke into someone's office at 4 o'clock in the morning. So anyway, your sleuth must have a good sense of humor. There are many humorous mysteries, but be careful because someone in your story may be grieving for even a disliked victim, and humor would be inappropriate. Okay. Challenges. Your sleuth will have many challenges. Your sleuth should have flaws as well as strengths. If she has an emotional issue, you as an author have a great opportunity to allow for her character growth. For example, if your sleuth has a fear of public speaking, she might have to confront her fear during the course of the investigation. Past mistakes may come back and haunt your sleuth. Old boyfriends and husbands may reappear in your sleuth's life, creating complications for her, and they may keep her from committing to a new love interest. Okay, in Murder at the Book Group, when my Hazel Rose series opens in Murder at the Book Group, Hazel has been married 4 times, divorced 3 times, widowed 1. She's very reluctant to go down the aisle a 5th time and has a rocky relationship with her on-again, off-again love interest. Getting to know your sleuth. Create a bio for your sleuth and for your other characters as well. This doesn't have to be extensive, but you should include their education level, marriage history, health issues, favorite foods, movies, books, and pets. For example, Hazel Rose, she went to RIT, and she met her first husband there. She has 2 cats. Her favorite movie is Double Indemnity. So you get the idea. Get a feeling for how your sleuth responds and how she speaks. Writing the story lets you further know your sleuth. So you don't have to do everything up front. Secondary characters. Secondary characters need to be interesting and provide subplots and diversions through several stories. You can have quirky and eccentric characters, but don't make them all that way. Often authors of mystery set in small towns will do this, but I advise against it. However, there are very popular mystery authors who only have quirky characters, so it's really up to you. If you enjoy a cast of eccentric characters, by all means have them in your series. Secondary characters may be friends, family, co-workers, government workers. In my books, the secondary characters are Hazel Rose's book group members and her family members. Some secondary characters may be victims at a point in your series. Secondary characters may provide reasons for the sleuth's involvement in crime solving. For example, if your sleuth's sister is the suspect and the sleuth knows her sister didn't kill the victim, or at least hopes she didn't, the sleuth is motivated to clear her sister's name. And then often the sleuth herself is the main suspect and she needs to clear her own name. Some secondary characters will appear in each story while others show up on the page only on occasion. More on secondary characters. Readers welcome secondary characters, but don't hesitate to introduce new ones. Create characters that readers will care about and will root for. Characters are often more important than the plot. Readers love characters, and if you have a series, they'll be looking for their favorites with each book. This is more the case of contemporary mysteries than with those of Agatha Christie and her contemporaries. With them, the focus is on the story and not on the characters. Give your characters real problems and let them overcome them. Give your characters choices to make. The more challenging, the better. Show how they benefit and grow from bad choices. Show how their personal relationships grow and change, mirroring reality. Make your characters human, even the bad ones. Theme. Make the recurring cast of characters the main theme of your series. The theme could be the sleuth's job, or neighborhood, family, or location. It could be a hair salon, a bar, a coffee house, a workplace, or any gathering place. In my series, the theme is the book group. The book group is a great setting because it brings together people with a common interest. They discuss their personal lives, and they have lots of contacts. In my series, one book group member is a writer, one is a business professional, two are librarians, and one is a retired English teacher and does a lot of volunteer work in the community. So between them, they know just about everyone who needs to be questioned as part of the murder investigation. And, you know, that makes it a little bit more realistic. Themes involving your theme further the plot and reveal aspects of your character. Okay, now for the victim. Who is your victim and who wanted him or her dead? Was the victim pleasant or unpleasant? If she was pleasant, why does more than one person have a motive for killing her? If she was unpleasant, why should the reader care about her murder? It's best if the sleuth knew the victim, as it gives her a compelling reason to get involved in the investigation. Plus, readers will care more. And the answers to these questions about the victim will form the heart of your story. Who is your victim? You may already have a victim in mind. Here are just a few examples. A controlling husband or lover, a rich and nasty relative, a demanding boss who passed your killer up for a promotion, someone who did your killer wrong, either recently or in the past. And if this idea comes from your own experience, be careful that you're not being too realistic. If you need ideas for your victim, consider news sources, especially local ones. They can give you inspiration. Look through the obits, letters to the editor, advice columns. That's my personal favorite, the advice column. Local politics, human interest articles. You'll find ideas like a bookkeeper at a nonprofit embezzles funds. A high school teacher seduces one of her students. A relative gets written out of a will and exacts revenge. Man's lover stabs his wife. And even something that sounds benign, like the country fair blue ribbon winner for the best jam. Well, somebody didn't lost that, didn't win that ribbon, and might not be too happy about it. And then there are the stories that people tell you about their family and friends, especially in the workplace. You hear all kinds of stories when you stop by someone's cubicle or, to get coffee. So, listen. Again, be sure to heavily fictionalize. And then there's what-if scenarios. What if a certain person appeared in your life after many years? Or what if a situation from the past had turned out differently? How is the murder committed? There are three aspects of a crime to always keep in mind: means, motive, and opportunity. Is there a special knowledge required to commit the murder, such as knowledge of poisons, herbs, anatomy, guns? Who among your suspects might have access to this knowledge? And of course, there's always the internet as a resource for people to do their research. If a weapon was used, who had access to it and the necessary experience to use it? Does it appear like the victim died of suicide, accident, or of a way other than murder? It can be a good idea to make it appear to be suicide or accident, but don't let those causes be your final solution. Some authors do this, but I feel it cheats the readers who want a murder. I use the suicide ploy in Murder at the Book Group. Again, I've talked about this before. Carlene Arness died when she drank cyanide-laced tea at a meeting at the book group. And Hazel Rose doesn't buy the suicide note found near Carlene's body and feels certain that the woman was murdered. Who had the opportunity? Almost anyone at the book group. But it seems unlikely that anyone took advantage of an opportunity. Carlene had opened a fresh box of tea and carried her mug with her at all times. So who slipped in a dose of cyanide? And how? And how did the killer even get cyanide? Who is the killer? Again, the three aspects of the crime to keep in mind: means, motive, and opportunity. Who has the most to gain from the victim's death? Who had the means to kill? Who knew the victim and had a motive? Who had an opportunity at the time of the murder? Is the killer the one who seems the most likely or the least likely? Don't limit yourself to the obvious characters. Consider service people, delivery people, friends, co-workers. In short, everyone acquainted with the victim as a possible suspect. However, you'll want to limit the number of suspects to 4 or 5 at the most. Okay, a visual aid. Okay, draw a...
Maggie?
Yes.
Maggie, before you go on, and you were talking about characters, a couple questions have come in.
Okay.
Do you, any chance that the sleuth in your stories is more based on an actual person in your life, or maybe even you, or do you kind of take characteristics from people you know and bring them together, or you're building it from without any influence of people in your life?
Oh, yeah, well, that's a great question. I would say that my characters are more composites of people who I've known, including myself. There's nobody who's, exactly, like someone who I've known in my real life, and there's no situation that's exactly the same. It's kind of like, if you're familiar with Picasso paintings, he's got like a person's face, but they're all broken up into fragments and squares. And so that's the kind of the analogy I have for my story.
Okay, one additional question from Brittany. It kind of relates to what you just finished talking about, the characteristics of the killer. How can you build suspense when following the killer as the main character, a la Gone Girl? And how do you build suspense if there is no sleuth?
Well, it's hard for me to answer that because I haven't written a story like that. I was just, you just have to consider people. You have to just consider the psychology of the characters and look at, have some kind of knowledge or be willing to look at the darkest aspects of people. And of course, not everyone wants to do that. In fact, I don't even think I want to, get that dark as it is, like especially in Gone Girl.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, for a visual aid, for your considering your killers. Draw a rectangle and write your victim's name inside. Then draw arrows radiating from the rectangle. At the end of each arrow, draw another rectangle and write the name of a suspect inside. Then along the length of each arrow, write in a possible motive for the corresponding suspect, or write a secret that makes him or her look suspicious. Okay, why did the crime occur? Did the killer seek revenge on a spouse or a lover for cheating? Did the killer wish to escape a controlling husband or boyfriend who wouldn't let her go? Did the killer need to increase her shares or interest in a business or property? Was the killer being blackmailed by the victim? Was the killer trying to preserve an inheritance for herself or a loved one? Was the killer afraid that a past misdeed would be discovered and ruin a prospective opportunity for money and prestige? The possibilities are endless. Okay. The most common motivators for killing, they are envy, jealousy, rage, greed, revenge, shame, and fear. And then, why kill now? Why indeed? Why did the crime occur now instead of at another point in the backstory? Did something change that threatened the killer? Has a new opportunity arisen for the killer to carry out her plan? Or is it a crime of passion? Creating suspense, or also known as heightening the tension. Start the story with action, description, or dialogue that entices the reader to keep turning the pages. And also, to heighten the tension, put your characters at risk. If your sleuth fails, will it endanger her life or destroy her reputation? Will she lose her job? Or will someone she loves or she cares about be impacted? Create a deadline for your sleuth, which, if not met, results in disaster. Isolate your characters. If your sleuth leaves her cell phone at home, or if her battery poofs out, or if she ends up somewhere with no coverage, she could be in grave danger, or feel like she is. Hook the reader from the opening page by suggesting a crisis or a major change for your sleuth or victim. For an example, I'll read the opening of A Body to Die For by Kate White. This is how it opens. When I think back on everything terrible that happened that autumn, the murders, the grim discovery I made, the danger I found myself in, I realize I probably could have avoided all of it if my love life hadn't been so sucky. Or let me rephrase that, non-existent. Late in the summer, I'd been kicked to the curb by a guy I was fairly gaga over, and though my heart no longer felt as raw as a rug burn, my misery had morphed into a sour, man-repellent mood. So when I was invited to spend an early fall weekend free of charge at the Cedar Inn and Spa in Warren, Massachusetts, I grabbed the chance. I do go nuts for a good massage, and I was hoping that a few of those and a change of scenery would improve my mood as well as jumpstart my heart. Unfortunately, soon after I arrived at the inn, all hell broke loose. So, did that opening pique your interest? It did mine. I kept turning the pages until I read the end. Okay, creating suspense, going on with this. Create false alarms for your sleuth. And the next time the alarm will signal something real and the sleuth won't react fast enough, if at all. End each chapter with a hook that will compel the reader to keep reading and lose sleep. Short paragraphs and sentences step up the pacing. Avoid lengthy descriptions and passages of introspection. I try to include backstory in dialogue or in short passages, making it seem more natural. Limit backstory to what relates to the current situation. There's an author who I love, but I get impatient with her long backstory passages that she includes with each and every book in her series. Every conversation should have a purpose and result in new information to move the story along. Okay, more on creating suspense. Include conflict in every scene. Keep the story moving and don't get bogged down, especially in the middle. Have something surprising happen. Authors will often produce a second dead body midway through the story, or a plot twist that will send your sleuth investigating in another direction. When I presented my debut mystery, Murder at the Book Group, to my agent, he said, "Great, I love it, but it sags in the middle. Tighten it up and cut 10,000 words. I said, okay, but I really had no idea how I'd eliminate 10,000 words, but I did, and it wasn't all that hard, really. I scrutinized it carefully, and I had a ruthless friend who I got involved, and I found unnecessary scenes and characters that wound up on the cutting room floor. Little film lingo there. Let readers experience your sleuth's emotional responses of anxiety and excitement and fear. Follow action scenes with scenes of reflection. Don't have one hair-raising scene after another. Rather, balance those scenes. You can do that by reviewing and updating the roster of suspects or by having a romantic dinner. Use foreshadowing to suggest that something bad will happen later in the story. Here's an example of foreshadowing from the Novel Writing Help website. An old man is sitting at his desk looking at his stamp collection. When he opens the drawer for his magnifying glass, his fingers brush against a revolver. He finds the magnifying glass and closes the drawer. So you can guess that the gun wouldn't have been mentioned if it wasn't going to be fired later in the novel. The investigation. Your sleuth questions the suspects. Have the suspects divert attention from the killer by giving each one of them a secret. The secret doesn't have to have anything to do with the victim or with the murder. The suspect may be protecting someone. The suspect may have committed a crime that has nothing to do with the murder, such as embezzling. Suspect may have a long-held grudge against the victim. Or the suspect is paying bills for a relative and for some reason doesn't want that known. Or it could be the suspect has a child from a long-ago affair and doesn't want that revealed. Have the suspect have the suspects tell both lies and truth. Have them rat on each other. Assign alibis. As far as alibis go, not every suspect will have one or one that can be verified. And some suspects are hesitant to reveal alibis and may lie about their whereabouts. Maybe they were somewhere they should not have been, like having an affair and not wanting to be found out. and some alibis will contradict something said by another suspect. Avoid a logical sequence of events in your story. Add curves, twists, and red herrings. Figure out how each suspect's secret will be revealed to your sleuth. And thwart the sleuth whenever possible to give her successes as well. And now for clues and red herrings. A clue is a piece of information that points to the killer. And a red herring is a piece of information that sends the sleuth in the wrong direction or points to a suspect who isn't the killer. And plant clues and red herrings throughout your story. Distract your readers when you drop a clue. Make the clue seem insignificant in comparison to something else, or overshadow the clue with a red herring that seems very important. For example, the sleuth learns that the victim was blackmailing one of the suspects. This is a suspect who needed the money for his kid's surgery and didn't want to, keep paying it out to the victim. Okay, present a clue that immediately create a diversion, such as a character walking in on a scene or a phone call. And disguise clues by listing a number of items. The items mentioned in the middle of a list get less attention. For example, comb, keys, lighter, wallet, pen, possible contents of a purse. Okay, the lighter is the least noticed item and may be the item that points to the killer. Okay, more on clues and red herrings. Use red herrings involving other suspects to distract from the killer. Uncover clues through omission. Have something missing from the scene. The sleuth may not notice that it's missing, but later it seems significant. Have something out of place in a scene. Play a cat and mouse game by having the killer trying to match wits with the sleuth. In so doing, the killer may slip and drop an important clue. Give the reader all the clues and information that your sleuth receives. Okay, the solution. Have the sleuth gather all the clues together and name the killer at the same time as your readers. At some point in the story, have the sleuth itemize the clues so the reader will know if she's missed anything. During the sleuth's confrontation with the killer, convey emotional reactions like panic and fear, such as heart racing or heart hammering, adrenaline surges, dry mouth, dry throat. Make the pacing quick, but capture every detail and nuance. Okay, the rap scene. The rap scene typically takes place with the sleuth's friends and family. Review recent events and discoveries, including why the killer killed. Have the sleuth explain how she figured out who the murderer was. And ideally, the sleuth has a moment of personal growth. In Murder at the Book Group, Hazel Rose goes from being unfocused and in a rut to being a woman who knows what she wants from life. A sleuth who never grows will lose readers' interest. And again, this is in a contemporary series. In Agatha Christie's day, readers really didn't care about the character's growth. They only cared about the story. Notice that Hercule Poirot and Jane Marple, they really did change much from one story to this next. Okay, in the last chapter, you might want to bookend the scene with the same people and setting from the beginning. Make sure you've covered bases and answered any questions your readers may have. You want your mystery to be completely solved and for your reader to have a sense of satisfaction. The ending is what readers take away when they close the book. To the reader, the characters and the story ending matter the most and are what they will remember. In conclusion, writing a mystery is a complex, challenging task, and today has just been an overview. It would take several webinars, to adequately, teach you how to write a mystery. But writing a mystery is a complex and challenging task. And to summarize, you need to create a likable but imperfect sleuth. You need to create an appealing cast of supporting characters, develop your victim, crime, killer, and suspect. Add clues and red herrings. Plan how your sleuth will uncover the clues. And then you have your grand finale.
Maggie?
Yes.
Before you go on, I've got a couple questions that have come in from Margaret.
Okay.
So Margaret's curious, she's got a couple of them. I'll just read one or two at a time. Do you create an outline and do you know the ending before you actually begin to write?
Okay. Yes, I do know the ending. So it's almost like working backwards. Not every author does, but that's what I do. As far as an outline, I have a general outline, but it's very flexible because I change it as I go along. Now, there are different kinds of writers. There is the plotter, and the plotter is someone who has a strict outline and has it all done, and they follow the outline absolutely. And then there's a pantser, and that's somebody who does no outline. They just sit down and they just write. I believe that Stephen King calls himself a pantser. And of course, Stephen King is, of course, very successful, so it works for him. And then there are the plotters who do a kind of a combination of a plotter and a pantser, and I consider myself to be a plotter because I have an outline that I follow, but sometimes the characters, authors will tell you this, the characters tell them what they want to do, and that's very true. It can sound odd to some people, but it's true. Your characters will inspire you.
Thank you. Margaret had two other questions, and then we'll wrap up today's webinar unless there are more. Margaret wants to know, how do you collect your story details? Do you use kind of the old school index card notebooks, or are you using some new age writer's app? And then do you actually write longhand or on a computer?
Okay. Those are really good questions. I do my creative work longhand, and then I kind of transcribe to the computer. So I'd like to, sit in a nice easy chair, with my legal pads and write that way. To me, it's writing, moving my hand with the pen and the ink. That's what. That's how it works for me. That's more real to me than working at the computer. And what was the second part of the question? Your story details, where do you collect them? Kind of old school on paper or in maybe some new writer's app? Well, no, I'm not using an app. Yeah, they're on paper, or I do have on my computer. I have I have a Word document for story ideas, and I collect them all in there. And I do have a paper file. I might see things when I'm reading the newspaper that I cut out and put in there. So different ways to collect. But I don't have it. I don't have an app for it, not yet anyway.
All right, thank you. That's all for now.
Okay, great. These have been great questions. Okay. Now, music to your ears. What you want to hear from readers is, I never guessed who the killer was. I was so surprised. And then another thing you might want to hear is, I just love your characters. I really got into your characters. Okay, takeaway. Read mysteries. Read many mysteries. You will probably write what you like to read, whether that's traditional mysteries or thrillers or suspense, and there's a lot of overlap in genres as well. They're not strict, but sometimes when you're starting out, you might want to stay within the parameters of the genre. And remember, it's all about your readers. Make them care about your characters, and never give up. if you want to write a mystery, don't let anyone, and including yourself, discourage you. Okay, here are my favorite traditional mystery writers. Susan Wittig Albert, of course, Agatha Christie, Nancy J. Cohen, Mary J. Hine, Jillian Roberts, Joan Smith, and many, many, many more. I just went to a convention of traditional mystery writers, Malice Domestic, in Bethesda, Maryland, and there were like 600 there, and that's just a fraction. Okay, so that brings to the last polling question. I'd like to know, who are your favorite mystery authors? And there are some resources for you. Writing the Cozy Mystery by Nancy J. Cohen. You can write a mystery, how to write killer fiction, and then here are a few websites. And of course, this is just a fraction of the help that's available. Okay, and I can make these resources and more of them available to you. And now I'll take any other questions you may have.
Thank you, Maggie. We're closing the poll. Last opportunity for folks to submit their questions. I'm scanning to see if there are any additional ones. Oh, we did that already. You write the ending first. Maggie said she does kind of know what her ending's going to be first. Maggie, of your list of favorite authors, is there someone on that list that is your kind of go-to?
I think Jillian Roberts and Joan Smith.
And why would you say that?
Okay, I just like the way, I love their characters, and I feel like they're, especially with Joan Smith is British, and I feel like they're very realistic, and they're believable. You can believe that somebody who is not a detective, someone who's not trained in apprehending killers, would get involved in these situations. And sometimes it isn't really believable, but you suspend your belief because you enjoy the story and the characters. But with Joan Smith, I think that they're believable.
Okay, we have a question from Sean. I'm waiting for Stephen to bring it up. All right, Sean wants to know, it's a two-part question. Is it suitable for the killer to get away at the end, or does that make the story feel unfulfilled and pointless if the sleuth doesn't succeed?
Okay. Well, readers tend to, especially in traditional mysteries, readers don't like that when authors do that. But you certainly can do it, especially if sometimes people might have an ongoing, like a trilogy going on, and so they're continuing the story into another book. And then it could be acceptable, as long as the killer eventually gets apprehended. But generally I wouldn't suggest it.
Thank you. Question from JD, how do you market or sell your books, and do you use traditional publishers or go on your own and use something like inkshares.com?
Okay. I have been traditionally published so far. I may venture out on my own eventually, using something like CreateSpace. But so far I'm traditionally published. I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question?
Or do you use something like inkshares.com?
Oh, okay. No, I'm, traditionally published. Okay, as far as, you also asked about, marketing and promotion. Okay, I go on blog tours after I, release a book. I have a launch locally here in Richmond, and invite people for that. I go on blog tours. There are companies that they will, if you pay them a fee, they will promote your book on to their mailing list, and usually, and that's for the ebook, which you usually will reduce to 99 cents, and that does very well. So I'd say it was mostly blogging. I do a lot of appearances. I serve on a lot of panels. I'm trying to think what else I do. Oh, I've been interviewed on the radio and on TV. The day I was on the TV, I was on local TV. My sales shot way up that day. So I would very much suggest being on TV, even though it's extremely nerve-wracking if you haven't done it before.
Okay, we have a logistical question from Theodore. What is the word count you would suggest in a story like the ones you have written?
Okay, well, the minimum is usually 70,000, and they go up to like maybe 90,000. I think my first book was probably around 92,000, and my second book was, maybe 80,000. It was my second one was better because, it was tighter. It was tighter writing. We do improve with each book.
Fantastic, thank you. That's about all the time we have, Maggie. Any additional questions can be emailed to me, rit@rit.edu, or ritalum@rit.edu, or you can also tweet them to @RIT_alumni with the hashtag #MeRITWebinars, and we will get you answers from Maggie to any questions you send at the conclusion of this webinar. As a reminder, you will all receive an email from us probably early next week with a link to today's recording, complete with captions. And again, I thank all of you for joining, but special thanks to Maggie for being our presenter today. Please consider joining us on May 16th, next week, for a webinar called Inches or Centimeters, an Introduction to Doing Business in Latin America. Our presenter on that will be alumnus and Andean Alumni Chapter Leader, Mr. Rudy Winsberg. Anyone doing business in Latin America or even thinking about it should attend this informative webinar before you get started. Again, thanks to all of you for joining. Please exit this webinar by simply closing your WebEx window. And please do take the very brief and anonymous customer satisfaction survey about this webinar when you exit. Have a great afternoon, all. Take care.